It's been 5 years since the madness of COVID, and we still don't have the answers we deserve as the American public. This week on Capitol Hill, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was dropping bombs in front of Congress and the Senate. Well, guess what? We welcome world-renowned scientist, inventor of the mRNA technology, Dr. Robert Malone, to talk all things about vaccines, COVID, and the government cover-up. Join me on the David Rutherford Show. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm just so honored and privileged to have one of my heroes, Dr. Robert Malone, on with me this morning. Dr. Malone, again, thank you for coming on. What I want to start out with is this week, Robert Kennedy Jr. was on the Hill, and it seemed to really ruffle a bunch of feathers because in conjunction with his testimony, he also made some pretty powerful changes at HHS, which, reducing staff by 25%, condensing divisions from 28 down to 15, a bunch of other cuts taking place. And I noticed that you kept your fan base paying attention to this. Why do you think this week was such an important week from everything we've gone through over the last 5 years?
No, last 5 years. It's, I think, become abundantly clear to those of us that have their eyes open that the industrial, biodefense, biomedical, academic, military complex, I guess is what you have to call it now. It's kind of spread into everything, has corrupted American health and American healthcare. And that extends out into the insurance agencies. It extends to the hospital chains. It extends to the health management organizations. It extends even to the academic journals. And it certainly extends throughout the government and particularly on the Hill. I've made the case repeatedly that to a significant extent, American elections, all the way down to dog catcher practically, are capitalized by pharmaceutical industry money. We also can see now over the last 5 years through the weaponized propaganda, not to mention censorship, and the access journalism, which is another word for propaganda, that corporate media is significantly compromised. And we've uncovered some of the mechanisms by which that happens, including the large fraction of what we call corporate media or establishment media or mainstream media. A large fraction of their revenue is coming from the pharmaceutical industry. And it's not just coming in the form of advertising that is specifically seeking to induce customers to either buy the products directly or to noodle their physicians to buy the products and prescribe them. But rather, this money comes in to the likes of the Washington Post, the New York Times, CNN, etc., in part to influence their content. And it doesn't have to be overt. If you're receiving a large fraction of your revenue from an industry, that's going to bias how you cover that industry. And that's normal human behavior. You wouldn't expect anything less. But behind all this, we've also learned that HHS has been compromised in a very significant way. Industry capture has occurred. Regulatory capture has occurred. I put out an essay the other day that was just a great case study regarding the new lobbying organization that has been set up to support the mRNA industry, what else to call it. I think it's an alliance of mRNA manufacturers, AMM is their acronym, led by a registered lobbyist and foreign agent who has a reputation of basically accepting whatever money is available and does the bidding of whoever it is that's paying him. Doesn't seem to be many filters there. So that what's interesting in the current discussion is that new lobbying organization has overtly launched a targeted marketing campaign aimed at President Trump in attempting to get President Trump to, put a leash on Bobby Kennedy, metaphorically speaking. And in the face of all of this pressure and the historic support of President Trump for Operation Warp Speed, his self-identification of OWS and the mRNA-based products in particular as one of his great successes during his first term, Secretary Kennedy and his small handful of confirmed colleagues. Remember that, for instance, the CDC director is still pending. There's a number of these positions that have been appointed that are still pending. And of course, recently we have the Surgeon General, which generated so much heat because of the base objecting to Casey Means for a variety of reasons that still baffle me, because the Surgeon General is really not that important of a position, and it has never been controversial. The appointments for that position have kind of been nothing burgers that nobody pays attention to. The prior nominee, who had a personal relationship with a key influential politician, selecting my words, apparently could not get the votes in the Senate subcommittee and was pulled at the last minute before hearings. And the Means, Dr. Means was substituted. So there's a number of these pending positions. There's just a small handful of confirmed positions. And then overlaying this, you had Doge coming in and driving a lot of these, the acronym used in DC is RIFs, or reduction in force. So this is the 20% reduction in force, which I think I read, as I recall, that under Clinton, President Clinton, there was something like a 30% RIF on HHS, but still the Democrats are howling over this and, trotting out the usual catastrophic fear that we're all going to die, because of this. This is an existential crisis that there's, going to be broad-based sudden death and all this. And Secretary Kennedy has come back rather forcefully. I think he must be getting training from Jack Posobiec or somebody because he's coming back in these hearings and metaphorically not tolerating these propaganda lines and misrepresentations. There was one that was particularly striking, having to do with, I don't know where the woman was from, California or New York, with the blue hair. Congress person, I guess I should say, a congressperson, identifying as a female, I believe, because she's from the left. And so I don't want to disrespect her and her gender identity. So she was being quite aggressive about these rift positions and how catastrophic this is going to be. And Bobby came back forcefully enough that she decided she needed to talk over him and not let him finish, in which he made the case that during these last 4 years, HHS has grown by another, I think it was 30%.
Yeah, could have been right around there. Yep.
Yeah, and these reduction in force that has been put in place is just not even returning it to where it was at the start of the COVID crisis. But there, the sky is falling and broad-based healthcare catastrophe is impending. And Bobby's point is made quite nicely that in the face of this ongoing escalation of HHS budget and staffing, all measurable outcomes for health of Americans, not the least of which is their life expectancy, has continued to decline. And then there's the, just overt mismanagement. That's the kindest thing I could say about the COVID crisis. There's there's words, there's a spectrum of words beyond mismanagement that go all the way to intentional bioweapon
Machiavellian destruction of the future of our life as we know it, right?
Yeah, I mean, pick your term and pick where you want to be on that spectrum. But I don't think anybody it's any at all objective can conclude that HHS did a good job during the COVID crisis. So what I hear in this part of your question, what are the consequences? I do have a fair amount of chatter going back and forth with various people in HHS.
Good.
Including some leadership. And I'm hearing widespread chaos. The RIF has created a situation where so understandably, a lot of these reduction in forces of actions have landed on the bureaucracy. And so the bureaucracy has faced a rather abrupt shift in staffing. And they are still trying to figure out what the new chain of command is, what their new roles and responsibilities are. And so the derivative of that is in bureaucratic world is that they don't, their efficiency in performing routine tasks, what we might call paper pushing, has just gone straight down the toilet. And they just don't know, what I'm hearing is just a lot of chaos and churn and a lot of these folks are still working from home, let's say, even though they're not supposed to be, or they're off site. And then on top of that, you have the presidential appointments that should be able to start to create structure and are needed to create structure within this rift bureaucracy. And those appointments have been hamstrung, like I mentioned, by an intransigent Senate. And so you have a lot of new people. Remember, it's 100 days since the president came in, but it's like 60 days since Bobby came in. And so 2 months with all these changes. And so you've got a bureaucracy from below that is still grappling with who's on first. And then you've got the political appointees from above that are functionally rift. They're not anywhere close to being fully staffed. In part, they can't be fully staffed, not only because of the Senate, but because the bureaucracy can't push the paper in order to get the appointees in. So there's a fair amount of chaos. Yet, despite that, we are seeing major structural changes implemented at a breakneck pace. So you've got all of these moving parts going on right now, and it's a little chaotic. But to the latest thing that has let's say endorsers and supporters of the biopharmaceutical industry having kitten fits right now is the kind of trial balloons that have been floated and rumors and surrogates that have said that HHS is about to make some major decisions about withdrawing support for the pediatric and
That's the one.
pregnancy recommendations relating to these mRNA products. I hesitate to call them vaccines, as prophylactics for COVID, when, of course, COVID now is pretty much a nothing burger. But they are all got their tails in a twist. And Stat News, who basically is the voice of the Boston biotech and biopharmaceutical industry, took and amplified the Wall Street Journal report of 2 days ago, I think it was, where they came out with this exclusive story that has been foreshadowed, I think, for about 2 weeks now by Commissioner McCarty and by the CDC and others, that the data aren't there to support these positions of recommending further inoculations in children and in pregnancy, which, of course, the industry strongly denies that there's abundant data, but completely denies that there's any adverse events, despite the literally thousands of peer-reviewed papers documenting those adverse events.
Right.
But the press is like, no, I can't hear that. And it all comes down, I think, that the other day we posted a meme on X that is an old one, has a kind of a stylized graphic of a young woman with short cropped black hair wearing a mask. And written on the mask, it says some version of, I'm not ready to accept that everything that I thought was true was a lie. And that one that's the meme that keeps on giving. That got hundreds of responses. It's got underlying truth. There's still widespread denialism.
I got to tell you, Doc, when you put out the meme post, that's my favorite aspect. A guy that has your background, all the patents, all the papers you've written, all the different places and the agencies around the world. And then when you put out a meme, it crushes me. I swear I laugh for like 5 minutes straight. And I've sent it to all my friends, and I just love it. Thank you for that.
We have to be happy warriors.
That's right.
It's really easy to get discouraged, and I'm so disheartened, frankly, by the bases, some of the things that have been said, including from people, I'm not going to name names, that were very close to Bobby and big supporters, and they said some really strong, unpleasant words that are ill-advised. Let's again, choosing my words, ill-advised language that
always the gentleman
one would expect to hear from the likes of AOC or Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
So guys, everybody, guys and gals, because we only have two genders on our side of the street, guys and gals, just chill out. Clearly, in case you don't get the memo, as I put the other day, hey, politics in D.C. is you're dealing with the imperial capital, and D.C. politics are a blood sport. If you don't believe me, ask President Trump.
Literally.
Yeah, quite. And that's making light of that is a little sketchy too. I mean, it was a horrible thing, but this kind of nitpicking and negativity and second guessing and armchair quarterbacking, recognize, please, that the secretary and his colleagues that have been confirmed are confronting an enormous challenge. They are confronting some of the most entrenched, powerful organizations in the world. And those organizations have deep connections within the U.S. government, and in particular the House and Senate, but to some extent also the president. And moving the president, I've had, I don't know how many conversations with CPAC leadership, who I'm good friends with, and others that have served in Trump 1 that tried to coach the president, and big donors that tried actively to coach the president to reconsider his positions on the Operation Warp Speed and the COVID genetic products. And he hasn't wanted to hear it at all. I think the booing on the campaign trail caused him to drop that thread in his speeches towards the end of the campaign. But it's certainly the analysts, I'm sure, will be chewing on this for the next decade. But a case can be made that the reason why President Trump is president and had the majority that he had was because of this assimilation of the Maha structure and electorate that really is from the left. It was a core part of the Democratic constituency historically. These are people that...
To include Tulsi Gabbard from the intelligence side as well, too.
And Bobby.
That combo, unbelievable.
And by the way, Tulsi, you have to recognize in considering Tulsi, Bobby actively pushed her as the next president after Trump in their barnstorming tour that they did towards the end of the campaign. And she still considers herself a candidate, I'm pretty sure, for the next round. So Tulsi versus J.D. Vance. I mean, the good news is that at least we have some depth at the bench. But as opposed to the other side that's just off in, Peter Pan land, with the Lost Boys, or girls or its or whatever they are. So this is, President Trump has his own political issues here in terms of maintaining the base. Yes, this is his last term, so he's technically a lame duck. But the midterms are going to determine whether any of these executive orders are sustainable. And people keep, they have some strange mental block to realizing that all we got with this election was about 18 months of oxygen. And expending that oxygen on petty, nattering nabob stuff when the big issues and the big fight is still in progress, and you don't even have confirmation of the CDC director, is just totally counterproductive. I wish people would just put a cork on it. But it's free speech and it's the internet, and that's the way things are.
Yep.
And
yes,
I'm positive that, as the author of Psywar, and somebody who's had to take a deep dive into understanding modern psychological warfare and the dynamics of the internet, that there has the opponents of Secretary Kennedy and the Maha agenda have deployed a lot of bots and trollery and chaos agents into this space to divide the base and to promote this kind of anger and discord. And if you don't believe that, you think that's a conspiracy theory, just take a look at what was revealed after Secretary Kennedy spoke about removing sodas from the Special Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, otherwise known as food stamps. And the soda industry immediately created just a blizzard of AstroTurf organizations. And then they were dropping, literally it's documented, $1,000 per tweet to conservative influencers to write crap about Bobby's very reasonable determination that the food stamps should not be used to subsidize toxic foods and candies and sugary sodas. You know, if somebody wants to go buy full strength Coca-Cola, including the president, then that's their business. I think that we should not put restrictions on that, but that taxpayers should subsidize people to buy toxic foods that are going to make them more sick and cause them to need more medical care, which the taxpayers are also going to subsidize. Well, that doesn't make any sense. And that's transparently the case. And yet you've got conservative influencers barking about this because they're getting $1,000 a tweet. That, talk about lack of integrity. That's, you know, I, as somebody who now finds himself in this weird world of, quote, being an influencer at 1.3 million Twitter followers and a total of something like 2 million across all the platforms, which isn't huge, but it's not nothing either. You know, I'm very aware that I need to carefully consider my messaging and maintain my own personal integrity in this. You know, I don't take money from anything except occasionally, like, for instance, the other day, I did a deal with the guy that is marketing the fentanyl test. And that brought in a total of about $250. Yay. Whew.
You're rich, Doc.
Yeah, that'll not even pay 1 month's hay bill. So thanks for that. I still think the fentanyl issue and the fentanyl test is a great advance, and the fentanyl issue is super important. But you know, you can't push the rock uphill. I'm privileged, blessed by having in our about 350,000 subscribers to our Substack that get it daily. About right around 13,000 of those actually have paid subscriptions. And what that means is that I have a decentralized funding base. And if any one of those subscribers gets pissed off because I used a bad word or something, and they decide to cancel their subscription, or more commonly, they're facing personal financial pressure. That's the usual reason for canceling. Is I have a lot of readers. They like to read, but they tend to be older, and they're facing significant financial stress, many of them these days, and so they need to stop their subscriptions. But those people set me free to be earnest and honest, but I also need to continue to act with integrity, or they will leave in droves.
Sorry to interrupt the episode, but you know it, we got to pay tribute to our sponsors. That's what makes the show possible. I want you to come out of your comfort zone and go visit firecracker.farm. If you like spicy food like I do, this is the place. This is hot pepper infused salt that you can put on your eggs, you can put on your steak, you can put on anything that you want to shove down your gullet, and it's going to make that little bit of kick that makes you happy all day long. I'm telling you now, go to firecracker.farm, type in RUT15, that's Romeo Uniform Tango 15, get your discount, and your taste buds will love me for it tomorrow. Booyah. The one thing that I've always, from the earliest days where you were doing presentations with Dr. Navarro, where you were raising, the alarms that, hey, this is
You remember that. And Peter and I wrote a couple of op-eds that got the press pretty well pissed off because we were saying that you shouldn't give these products to people that don't need them.
Well, got you kicked off LinkedIn, got you kicked off Twitter, got you kicked off all those places, and got him eventually and wound up in jail. And when the one thing that really captured me the most about your lectures, as well as the fascinating details with which you articulate the science behind all of these technologies and how we're not sure what the potential long-term effects are going to be. And now through people like Ed Dowd and finding out the insurance the morbidity rates and the explosions and turbo cancers and all the different issues and the VAERS data, we know what you were saying in the beginning, right?
And the myocarditis incident. I mean,
That's
David,
right.
think about this. Virtually every person on the globe has been infected, and a large fraction of them have experienced brain fog. Just that alone, the impact on the cognitive capabilities of the collective world is profound. And this was an engineered virus.
Well, that's where I want to get to. These are the two spots that, because, coming from my background in special operations, my background in the intelligence world, I understand bioweapon. I've studied it. I've had to learn. I was a medic. I had to learn how to treat it, how to identify. And then at the agency, obviously, I learned a whole nother level about psychological warfare as well, too. And that's the thing that really got me. When you started talking about mass formation psychosis, that was the pivot moment for me, because I was like, wait, here's a scientist. Here's a guy that has been deeply dedicated in his life to figuring out how to benefit humanity. And then you moved into the government, did incredible work within the government in biodefense research and development, who's coming out and saying, listen, you all have essentially been brainwashed. You need to wake up. You need to realize what's going on. These are the connections. And you were the first, I believe, the first person with substantial credibility that was voicing those alarms. My question to you, sir, is how come, even with this, the base and the extension of the base with the Maha movement and Tulsi as it grew, and we certainly saw with the political tsunami that took place this fall, why are there still so many people that don't see this intricate web that is diabolical in nature and intentionally trying to craft these very sophisticated narratives that change the consciousness of the collective?
So, if I can rephrase your question,
please.
You teed up mass formation psychosis or mass formation, the Matthias Desmet kind of 21st century extension of the work of Hannah Arendt, Sigmund Freud, all the way back to Plato and the cave. And that was, vilified. You're familiar with all the heat that came down on me and a lot of other people. Most here in North America are not familiar with what was deployed against Matthias, including in his own university. He was not able to teach his own book. And we even had an American psychiatrist attacking him constantly and making false claims that he had enabled a predator to in a hospital situation to kill patients.
Hmm.
and just all kinds of ugly stuff. But what Matthias was speaking about, and that I did my best to responsibly communicate to a broader audience, and to accurately represent the logic that he had built, which kind of starts on a foundation of social fragmentation as the thing that enabled that process to occur. And by the way, ties back to the effects of hyperinflation, which also fragments societies and has, it was historically kind of the roots of what happened in the Weimar Republic transition to National Socialism, ergo Nazis, and that hyperinflation has always historically been behind a lot of these transition moments where the population basically loses its mind and undergoes one of these events. And by the way, the term mass formation, that seems a little bit odd to English-speaking ears. Mass formation. It doesn't fit with our use of the language. And the reason for that is because it's translated from the Dutch. And it's kind of a little bit of a mistranslation because that's where he writes. That's his native language. And what he's really talking about is the madness of crowds, which we all understand. I mean, that's the, pitchforks and fire portrayed in Frankenstein.
Or on a positive psychology perspective, it's concerts, right? The euphoria that an entire group of people can feel listening to music.
Yeah,
right.
Good example. So these crowd phenomena that are well known, not completely well understood psychologically, and all the pushback that, well, the DSM doesn't describe mass formation psychosis, therefore it's just a conspiracy theory. Well, the Diagnostic Statistics Manual of the American Psychiatric Association, I think it is, APA, focuses on individuals. It doesn't really speak to crowd-based phenomena, so that's a non sequitur. But under that, you're touching on this long-standing observation that, for instance, there's an interview in Black and White from Aldous Huxley in the early 60s in which he speaks basically in defense of propaganda. In the context of the British government, basically making the case that without propaganda, governments can't operate, that they have to use these tools in order to manage the population, which libertarians, drives them up.
Dave Smith and Scott Horton go through the roof with that, don't they?
But that's the logic, right? And so he, despite Brave New World and his mentorship of George Orwell, famous for 1984 and Animal Farm, he was a defender in many ways. And his brother was seminal in the development of the UN Charter and a lot of this globalist logic that we are confronted with all the time. But he makes the case in that interview that about 20% of the population are highly suggestible, will basically follow authority figures. And others make the connection that this same fraction of the population has the characteristic that they're readily hypnotized. So they're highly suggestive people. And about 20% of the population are highly not suggestible people. And why that is still a mystery. Is it childhood experiences? Is it genetics? Is all the above? Who knows? But there are those, and perhaps you and I are in that group of dissenters that aren't so easily manipulated.
I do have to admit, though, Doc, when I went through training, I was all in, man. I drank the Kool-Aid as much as you could drink the Kool-Aid.
Well, that's good of you to own that. So
yeah.
And by the way, that's a fundamental aspect of medical training. People are all perplexed by why the docs were all in harmony supporting the narrative. Well, you can't get through medical school unless you become very adept at assimilating and regurgitating whatever authority figures tell you. That is the essence of medical training these days.
That's why I love Casey Means and what she's doing out there, is speaking, the most profound truth to that coming out of Harvard and the level with which she was operating. And I mean, that's why it's so beautiful that now she does get into this role that you had said, hopefully gets into this role and takes it, runs with it, that you had said before was this muted role, but now like it can become, it's really like the spokesperson of the United States, right?
It is the bully pulpit for the public health service. And she would have typically a rank of admiral, but not commander of the seas. The public health service is structured. It basically is an outgrowth of the Navy. And so they basically wear naval, tropical uniforms and, have assigned ranks as if they were naval officers. But I guarantee getting to be captain or admiral in the Navy is a whole different thing from being captain or admiral in the public health service. But never the best. So
sorry to distract you on your point.
20% are just tell me what to do and I'll do it. 20% are tell me what to do and I'll tell you to go straight to hell. And the rest are basically whichever way the wind seems to be blowing. So those are the persuadable middle. And they're the only ones that matter, by the way, politically. And so you're asking the question, it's been a long time getting back to your question. You're asking the question, why is it that we're still seeing such a large fraction of the population unwilling to question the dominant narrative that was so aggressively promoted and deployed during the COVID crisis, including these phrases that are used as part of neurolinguistic programming, such as safe and effective. And they're still being used. Although USAID is mostly gutted, but those programs are still, capitalized.
Still in the budget.
Yeah, exactly. It's people that are in the base, let's say, don't recognize that they are still a minority opinion. So I wrote a essay a few days ago about the Splinternet and the balkanization of it's really the entire knowledge and information space, referring to the Balkans in Europe that became very separated and isolated from each other economically, and that led to some political and economic problems in Europe historically. So the Balkans and balkanization becomes a metaphor for when things get fragmented. And the internet is absolutely getting fragmented, hence the new term, the Splinternet. And it's getting fragmented in some ways in an unavoidable process. For instance, we've long known that China was controlling what was available to their population because they knew that if they had a fully open World Wide Web access, then their population would be exposed to ideas that they don't want them to be exposed to and information they don't want. Well, the United States doesn't want us exposed to information from China, Russia being, it's almost a direct crime to have been employed by Russia Times at this point. What most of the world considers far more credible than CNN as a news source. But if you were an American that ever worked for Russia Times, you can forget about having a serious position with any administration or any news service now. And there's a good probability that you're going to find yourself under investigation by the FBI, if nothing else. So we do it, they do it, and now we have things like the digital information restrictions in Europe that are imposing major fines on social media companies, as a fraction of their revenue. If they don't restrict the forms of speech and the topic areas that the European Union doesn't want discussed, and so then the only way to maintain, even if we want to have an open internet in the United States, we're basically going to have to set up firewalls because Twitter or Facebook or whatever you think about them, all these entities that are major nodes, that another little, sorry, I'm jumping around, but the folks that haven't studied the scalability issues with the internet don't realize that the entire internet could be taken down by taking out something like a little less than 1% of all the nodes, because it's all these major nodes like Google that control it all. It's all because of the kind of organic, decentralized structure. You have these major nodes, and they basically structure the entire internet organically, and they can't operate in an open environment if they're going to get fined, 5 or 10% of their revenue because Dr. Malone says that Ursula von der Leyen is lying, right?
Repeatedly.
Yeah. So, and as a threat to democracy. So, we're going to have to set up firewalls in the United States, and hopefully we have an open internet in the United States. And then, as if that isn't bad enough, we have the kind of organic segregation and parsing into communities. That's another major factor of the Splinternet. So that we are and the algorithms are reinforcing that we're self-segregating into little pockets. And this is what gets back to the point that the base, the Maha base, which represents one of those segregated pockets, thinks that because they're only talking to themselves, they think that they represent a majority opinion. And they don't realize that they're still in the minority, that these positions, like that the jab should be withdrawn from the market, that I advocated with other physicians in a press conference, broadcast and recorded at Del Bigtree's studio down in Texas about 3 years ago, that's still a minority opinion, and it can't break out because of the organic boundaries that exist within the Splinternet, and because of things like small rooming that's happening,
right.
Which is that I may have 1.3 million followers technically on Twitter, or X, but the truth is that my messaging is only allowed to go out to a small subset of those,
right?
Even though the other ones are subscribing, so I end up thinking that I'm talking to a broader audience, when in fact I'm just in the same echo chamber. And that's true for everybody in this space. So they think that the world is aligned with them because they're only talking to people that are like them. And so that now Bobby had been existing in that space. Children's health defense, and the things, the audience that it speaks to, which is actually fairly modest, was where he lived. And until he broke out of the framing, kind of the Overton window that was structured around him, that he's an anti-vaxxer.
Yep.
By assimilating, no, I'm pro-health, and I'm particularly pro-children's health, And the vaccine issue is just one aspect of my being pro-health. Fluoride is another one. Dyes in foods are another one, et cetera, et cetera. Then he was able to break out of that and reach the granola head, tree hugger, pissed off moms, right? And so the rest is history. But now he is running the largest division of the U.S. federal government by budget, bigger than the DOD, at least the
What is the budget for HHS?
I don't know. I don't have that in my brain, but
Yep.
it's officially because of Dr. Oz's portfolio, Medicare, Medicaid.
Right.
But it's massive. And he now has to, I'm referring to Bobby, has to represent and operate in the interests of the entire nation. He no longer has the latitude to just speak to the true believers. And that's, the base doesn't seem to understand that.
Right.
That he is operating in a totally different battlefield now. And up against, as I said before, the most powerful organizations in the world, big finance, Wall Street, big pharma, big ag, big food. I mean, this is the big leagues, boys and girls. And this is so much more than just vaccines that he's having to grapple with. And
I love how you frame it in that context, sir. It's like you keep coming back to that fight, right? And I'm hearing it from my friends that are high up at DOD, what, Pete Hegseth is having to deal with, right? I'm hearing inclinations of it within the intelligence community, right? And how entrenched, how difficult it is with Radcliffe and everybody doing that same thing. If Bobby
Tulsi,
were to...
Tulsi has got the tiger by the tail, and where the rubber hits the road, not to mix too many metaphors there, is the investigation of viral origins.
Yes. Yep. And it's interesting as you depict the magnitude of all of these things together, and hopefully the audience is allowing themselves to make those connections, right? Because well, that's what happens, right? People's minds blow, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait, everything I thought I knew might not be true. And then, well, what do I do now? Like, how do I stay positive? How do I move forward with it?
How do you stay a happy warrior?
That's right.
Remember Ronald Reagan, okay?
That's
Never
right.
forget Ronald Reagan. It's morning in America. Be a happy warrior. Do not be one of these, Debbie Downer, the sky is falling, henny penny.
I really hope you're enjoying the show with Dr. Robert Malone. We want to pause briefly for me to remind you that on May 31st at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on our Patreon account, I will be giving a live motivational event. 1 hour of the most incredible motivation you've ever heard. This is 30 years of really me trying to understand what about the human condition that enables us to succeed, or what drives failure in the most extreme environments imaginable. Now, all you got to do is go to our Patreon account at David Rutherford Show. It's a $2 a month subscription rate, and you will have full access to this event. 1 hour of speaking and 1 hour of Q&A. You don't want to miss it. Please join us on our Patreon account. Thank you. Do you think that's if you were to be able to get if Bobby Jr. called you tomorrow and says, Dr. Malone, I want you to come in, I want you to be one of my advisors, how are you going to attack this system, this multi-headed system from the scientific community? How do you begin to break apart or at least at that core point? What do you advise him to do?
If he had made that call, and if I was in the progress of being vetted for something like that, I would have to deny it.
Wow.
Because those are the rules in the Trump administration. Is the fastest way to find yourself not appointed is to announce your appointment.
Got it.
Prematurely.
Got it.
And a number have fallen afoul of that, including, unfortunately, the people that were initially considered for USDA.
Right.
A congressman that I strongly support and a farmer that I strongly support. And that's just unfortunate. And I've seen it again and again. So if something like that theoretical was to happen, I would find myself in a position where I'm one voice in the context of a massive bureaucracy with all kinds of competing interests. So the best I could hope to do would be to, I'll use the term nudge at the margins. And what I think, so my position on all of this has been all the way through, if called to serve my country, I will do so to the best of my ability, but I do not seek an appointment. I think there are places where I can be useful, and there are other places that I might be useful, but I don't want. And that the don't want part is I know enough about what it would be like to have an administrative slot that I have absolutely no interest in such. Full stop.
Roger that. All right, noted. All right, the last little.
But in terms of policy positions, where I can be used effectively here is coming from two places. And I've spoken to Heritage about this. In theory, I need to get back to them. I would love to be involved in rethinking the Vannevar Bush underlying assumptions that have guided the structure of the entire federal R&D enterprise. Vannevar Bush, for those that are, look it up on Google. Vannevar Bush was a key figure in the Manhattan Project structure and operations. And he's a name that's not often mentioned. And then post-war, he was tasked with basically taking the lessons learned and applying it first within DOD, R&D, and then in a broader sense across the federal government. And the structure that he set up worked extremely well, but it's been compromised over time. A lot of people have figured out how to work around things and manipulate things and create these little fiefdoms like Tony Fauci kind of personifies, these little mafias. That someone needs to take a good, hard, long look at that structure and update it in light of artificial intelligence and all the modern capabilities that we have.
Well, for me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm also potentially useful as a subject matter expert in things relating to gene therapy, genetic delivery technologies, vaccines in general, regulatory affairs, platform technologies. There's a outstanding congressionally mandated new FDA guidance relating to platform technologies, potentially assisting in various ways the advisory boards, the Vaccine and Related Biologics Advisory Committee, and the ACIP, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices at the CDC. So my business before all this, and one of the reasons why I was comfortable being you call a whistleblower or a truth teller or whatever, is that has been my business. Is I've basically been a coach to the C-suite for years because I could be reliably assumed to provide an independent assessment of risks and opportunities to executives that are typically surrounded by sycophants. So that's kind of been my brand. And so it wasn't that much of a stretch to kind of do that on a bigger scale, but I can be helpful to assistant secretaries, directors on kind of an ad hoc basis, to assist them in determining what their options are, exploring those options. And I think those are ways that I could be useful to Secretary Kennedy, including serving as a sounding board to the secretary should he wish.
I that answer was exactly what I was hoping that you would say. For me, obviously, the greatest fear that I have is that this whole idea of whether it's coming from the WHO and their crazy treaty they were trying to get passed in April, last year as well.
By the way, is coming up for a vote, and they're still jamming it through. They've kind of dialed back on some of the rhetoric, but it's still there.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that at all, or is that too? That's a lot to get into.
This has come at us in two packages. The international health regulations, which they jammed through modifications on, basically by violating their own rules and protocols. And Tedros is the guy that is what was the rallying cry in the prior campaign? Not encumbered by what has been.
Oh my God.
Tedros seems to be a true believer in not being encumbered by what has been. And
he's the embodiment of that.
Yeah, he kind of is. And, with the full backing of Bill Gates and the WEF and so he jammed this through basically by violating all the rules in kind of a after dinner lightning strike on the last day. That's the international health regulations, where a lot of the delegates weren't even present to vote on it. And it's another one of those things like the way Congress passes the budget. They drop it on your desk and say, vote. No, you don't have time to read it. Shut up. What's your problem?
Do what you're told.
This. That's pretty much the new model for governance.
New? I think we're going on like 30 years of that, Doc.
Yeah. Well, they've refined it to a fine art. And Tedros is a true believer in that. And then the next one, the other part of the package was the pandemic treaty. And they're no longer calling it a treaty. They've tried to dial back on some of the wording. They're making it less prescriptive, but it's still getting jammed through, and it's going to come up for a vote. But I'm not clear whether the U.S. So in the Biden administration, the Biden administration didn't even bother to appoint somebody to the basically board of directors of the World Health Organization representing the United States. And given that President Trump's position is we're getting out of this, thank you very much, I doubt that he has appointed somebody for that slot. That was actually a slot that I personally volunteered. I'd say, I like this job because I would love to be sitting there turning the screws on them on behalf of the United States as we cancel our obligations. But, if wishes were fishes, there would be no beggars. So that didn't happen. So I'm sure that they're going to vote in some pseudo treaty, and we're basically going to save. At least I hope so.
From your lips to his ears, right? Along those lines, I think for me, we have all of these, let's call them stakeholders around the world who are all out there pontificating about, oh, the next one's going to be the big one.
Oh,
The next
that's
one's
all that existential fear.
That's right.
You're going to die. Yeah. You're going to die.
Conditioning. And so for me, that ability for you to be, really powerful guide to this, if that should happen. And, if you're listening, don't be afraid to call your local congressman or call HHS and advocate for Dr. Malone to at least, be consultant on all these things. But for me, it's really about, bioweapons research, which I believe is ultimately the core of what we're dealing with right now. And so, my last kind of, spectrum of your analysis that I would love you to, share with us is, where are we right now in terms of gain of function, in terms of the NGOs that we're outsourcing it, where it's being outsourced, where are we now? And what does the current battle space of bioweapons research and development look like? And what would you like to see happen in the next, 6 months with that? Well, if you're anything like me during that interview, my mind was blown. Dr. Robert Malone is truly an expert when it comes to all things relative to the COVID-19 pandemic, the lead up to it, the generation of the mRNA vaccines. He was one of the original inventors of the technology, as well as so much more in terms of mass formation psychosis, the government's role in all of this. I understand it's a lot to process, but stand by because part 2 is coming up. Please join us again during that episode where Dr. Robert Malone is going to dig into bioweapons research, bioweapons proliferation, and what he feels the United States needs to embark on next. So don't miss part 2 of my interview with Dr. Robert Malone. Thank you very much.